And from the necessities of life to things which most definitely aren't, but are often viewed as such. The lucrative market for technology, particularly things like smartphones, is one of the most fierce battles in the business world these days. And before you say, well, not everyone's got a mobile phone, consider that 90% of the planet now does have mobile phone coverage. As the world's population approaches 7 billion people, the number of mobile phone subscribers is likely to reach 5 billion soon, which is 70% of the planet. And much of that growth is coming from emerging markets. There are 500 million active users in China, while India adds 6 million subscribers a month. We're going to talk gadgets in a moment with a tech analyst in London. But first, this report from Sonia Gallego at the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona.
The revolution of the smartphone. The mobile device, no longer just a phone, it's a personal hub, opening up the world at the touch of a button. We bank on it. We use it to amuse ourselves and be part of a virtual community. Its technology can even change lives. At Barcelona's Mobile World Congress, tens of thousands gathered to spark off the next wave in the digital revolution. From gaming devices to 3D smartphones, the technology of the future has now arrived, straight into your palm.
You're going to see connections going at bigger and bigger speeds. So mobile phones actually getting connected to the internet at about 1 gigabit per second, which is really exciting. We're of course going to see new devices, but not just traditional devices. We're going to have everything in our lives connected. So heart monitors, utility meters, cars, you name it, it's going to be connected to that mobile network. And then the third big thing, applications. Everyone wants to talk about applications. It's a really exciting space.
Also, we've heard a lot about using your mobile phone as a credit card. What's the technology behind that?
So essentially near-field communications, using your phone to pay for simple transactions, to get tickets, all of those cool things can be done with your mobile, and we expect that to roll out in really significant quantities in the next 2 years.
Big on the smartphone scene is the wow factor. Which device will have consumers rushing out to buy? With entertainment playing a big part in the experience.
The people who play games on the smartphones, their average age is around 35.
Right.
That's true. And most of them are actually female.
Really? So
True.
this is going to work a treat with perhaps the more female consumers?
It will definitely work well with female consumers as well.
Well, one of the stars so far of the show has been this new phone developed by LG. It not only records in 3D, but it also plays out in 3D, setting a new standard for smartphones everywhere.
What we're seeing now is a very strong trend toward 3D becoming part of our regular, everyday lives. It may take a couple of years for it to become, to get into the majority of the homes, but we do not see this trend stopping. So it just made sense to start looking at mobile devices as a home for 3D as well.
And of course, not forgetting the effect of social networking in bringing about political change, as seen recently in Egypt.
Actually, Tahrir Square is a result of communication and technology. I was there myself for several days, and you would see people with their handsets all the time, everybody.
Driving forward a new age in knowledge and empowerment. Sonia Gallego for Counting the Cost, Barcelona.
Joining us from London to talk phones and other gadgets is Tony Cripps. He is a technology analyst with the research company Ovum. Tony, thank you for your time, and start with the Nokia-Microsoft deal. It is either, and I can't decide myself, a brilliant tie-up between two specialists or two companies with fading fortunes and they're just trying to prop each other up. Which one do you think it is?
Well, I think if you look at the situation that both companies have been in around the smartphone and smart device space over the last couple of years, I think it's apparent that both have needed bigger partners to help them actually reach their potential. Nokia's been working with its own software platform for 10 years or so now. It was really looking for a next generation one. Microsoft has that, but arguably doesn't really have the hardware partners to reach the maximum market potential that it could. And I think in that respect, this is a really good matchup.
But what do you think they can come up with? The smartphone market has been, I won't say cornered, but certainly dominated by Apple. Google's in there, it's got its Android phones. Do you think people are going to want to, go in and snap up a Nokia, Microsoft smartphone?
Well, I think the option of both together is probably stronger than either apart in the smartphone space at the moment. I think it would be a bit much to expect them to come through to lead the smartphone pack and get ahead of either Apple or Google with Android in the short run. But nonetheless, it does look like a very strong third partnership there, and a very strong play overall, I think, for consumers and perhaps businesses too.
And what about a quick word on some of the other players in the market? I mentioned Apple and Google, obviously, but your LGs, your Samsungs. Seems to me this market, although obviously wildly popular, is just saturated at the moment.
Well, I think you're right, and I think actually this partnership tends to remove some of the variation that there was in the marketplace. The Symbian platform that Nokia's used for a long time is gradually being phased out. I think it's going to make things a lot easier from the point of view of consumers to understand and buy the sorts of devices that they're looking for in future. I think with players like LG, Samsung and so on, that for them the longer term question is whether or not they feel happy being part of that whole Microsoft ecosystem, now that Nokia seemingly has kind of moved in with preferential status over them. Nonetheless, they're strongly supportive of Google with Android as well. And in that regard, I guess we'll just have to see how that plays out.
Got to look at the flip side though, Tony, as we do like to count the cost, as it were, the effect of all this technology. Two levels. One is the market saturation, which we talked about, but also in a sort of an information overload scenario where we actually risk getting bogged down with too much technology.
Well, I think there's a degree of truth to this. We are surrounded by technology constantly, day in, day out. I think the real question, though, has become one of how do users of technology actually get to use technology in the simplest way possible. And coming back to the main thrust of this discussion, I think partnerships like those between Microsoft and Nokia will actually help people to use technology more effectively. I think at the end of the day, there's no real escape from it.
So it's just the world we live in now, or the world some of us live in, I should say. We're surrounded by information, we're surrounded by information technology. In business, it's become the accepted norm. And this idea of technology downtime is something we actually have to consciously make time for.
Well, absolutely, and I think this is a problem particularly for business users. We are expected seemingly now to add extra hours to our working day as a result of devices and applications like BlackBerry, for instance, that have revolutionised the use of email on the move. I think we're right. I think finding downtime in that kind of situation is difficult, and perhaps actually something that needs to be addressed both at the professional and business level for those people that are using technology for business purposes, but also in people's private lives.
That is Tony Cripps talking technology and phones with us here on Counting the Cost. Thank you for your time, Tony.
Okay, thanks, Kamal.
And if your technical limitation is a computer with an internet connection, well, that is more than enough to check us out online. Start at aljazeera.net/English, hit the business tab at the top and follow the links to the Counting the Cost page. Episodes in full are there, as well as special web-only content. And then when you want to get in touch, look for @AJCountingCost on Twitter. Best way to get in touch it is. Share your thoughts with us and follow developments on the show. But that is it for this edition of Counting the Cost. I'm Kamal Santamaria from the whole team. Thanks for joining.